Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is Kay Cote, and I'm your host for today's episode. And today on the show, we have Cullen Barbados, CEO of United Fitness Partners, as my guest. We're going to be learning about his business, his journey to business ownership, best practices he's learned along the way, and as well as some challenges that he's faced to give you that inside look to what it's like to own and operate a business. If this is your first time on our channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notified when we drop episodes like this. Welcome, Cullen. It's so great to meet you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Kay.
Uh,
Glad to be with you.
well, before we get started, I'd love to dive in and learn a little bit more about you. So feel free to share a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so we live here out just outside of Austin in Dripping Springs, and I run a business of Planet Fitness franchises. We have 196 of them across 14 states, and started with one in Amarillo, Texas, and um, my family and I moved here about 6 years ago, and I have one in college and one about to go to college. And so an exciting time for us. Married 25 years. We go to a local church here, Austin Ridge, that we're a part of that community. And so we moved here from Atlanta about 6 years ago and really love the Central Texas community and what we found here. So excited to be here. Thanks.
Of course. Well, that's incredible. I've actually been to Austin Ridge before.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Yeah, the big
yeah,
new building. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was beautiful. A girlfriend of mine invited me to go, and I thought it was just a really cool spot. So that's really
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Well, this is really great. I'm so excited to learn about your business of franchises. I know Planet Fitness super well. I've probably
yeah,
worked out there once or twice, and
yeah.
so this is going to be a fun conversation. So, how did you get started in fitness, or how did that come about? You said your first one was in Amarillo, so I'd love to learn more about that.
Yeah, so I didn't start the business, and so it's a really fun story for me. The guy that did start it, Trey Owen, started with one gym in Amarillo, Texas, and in 2010, and one became two, two became four, four became eight, and then all of a sudden, he started rolling up different franchise groups, and so we were kind of the first group to start buying other franchisees. And 7 years ago, he and I were catching up. We both went to West Point. We were on the golf team together, which is how we know each other. And so we were connecting about something else, not at all related to business. And he was telling me what he was doing, and he just kind of was like he kept coming back to this phrase of like every time we had a club, it's the biggest company I've ever run. And, my experience before this is, been in multi-unit retail, Home Depot, Dollar General. I ran, 2,000 stores for Dollar General. And so size and scale didn't really bother me, right? To me, it's about, building a culture, building operational processes, and providing organizational clarity and those types of things. And so as we were talking through it, he was like, you want to come down and check us out and see if maybe you could help? Or I said, sure, yeah, let's do it. So we talked for kind of 6 or 9 months and met the team and joined in, and we started kind of building out, one of the things about growth companies. This is the fourth growth company that I've done and came in as COO. Is as you double in size, either unit count, dollars, profit, whatever, kind of the organization that got you there won't get you to the next one. And so you kind of have to break the organization without breaking the people, right? And that's the real art of it. Is sometimes the people that get you to that stage can't get you to the next stage. And so how do you honor that work and honor that contribution and find a place where they can continue to contribute, or treat them with honor and respect, and it's time to move on because the company is kind of moving in an upward to the right trajectory. And so Trey had never done that part before. I had done that, and it just laid out pretty clearly to me of we needed to build systems and processes and infrastructure. So today we're a combination of 10 different acquisitions, and we've kind of bought half and built half, is roughly what it is. So kind of 196, and half we bought and half we built. And so how do you go build, you know, we were building before COVID 20 units a year. So that's a whole different set of construction processes and systems of the real estate allocation and the resources and all of those things. And how do you get a labor model across 10 different acquisitions? Everybody did it slightly different. So how do you get everybody on the same one? So just big kind of skunk work projects, I would call them, of layering in incremental um, processes and systems in it. One of the first things I did when I joined almost actually, I think it was yesterday was my anniversary. I got a email from myself congratulating me on my anniversary. So, um, but I spent the first 30 days, I didn't come into the office. I just got on the road and I went and visited clubs. And I visited 50 something clubs across a bunch of different states and um, spent time in the club for a day and just worked. Like just said, club manager put me to work. Like, what do I do? Teach me how to use a system. How do I engage with members? How do I sell a membership? How do we handle somebody that wants to cancel? How do we do all of those things? And so really understanding what happens at the club level. And one of the interesting things I saw was they had um, everybody had a checklist on the back counter. And so there's a check-in counter, kind of like a check-in counter. And then in the back, they had these checklists. And then some of them were one page, some were like 12 pages. And I said, after the first couple of clubs, I'm like, okay, they all have a different one. Like, okay, why? And so you start asking questions of like, what's happening and who gave this to you and why do you have it? And does anybody ever check on it? Does anybody ever follow up on it? And most of the time I got, no, no one's ever asked me. And I said, so why do you do it? Well, it's helpful sometimes, and sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. And so I just started gathering them up and I brought them back with me and I ended up with like 300 pages worth of checklists. And we had an intern working for us that summer. And I said, I want you to go through all of these and I want you to find all the commonality across all of these checklists of like what's on everybody's checklist. And that ends up being a pretty short list because those are the things that people thought those are the non-negotiables of really running a club. And so we created a club playbook. And so they have it on the back of their counter now, and it's 5 or 6 years old. And every day there's a checklist of what to do, and that's the communication hub for messages that we're asking them to do, our franchisors asking them to do, or the club managers asking their team to do. And so our teammates always know they can go to that book and they know, okay, here's what I'm supposed to do today, and then I sign off on that I did it, and then the manager comes by and way to go, Kay. Great job on, fixing that thing, right? And so that way people feel a part of like what's happening. And it's not, I only get to know what I'm doing if I encounter the club manager on the day that I'm working, is I always know I can go to this one spot. And when I show up, I'm being counted on. And I think that's one of the things about creating a culture is a culture of they're a part of something really great. And what we talk about is we bring health and wellness to the communities in which we serve. And so that's a really powerful mission. If you think about it. And when I talk to our club managers, I talk about like how are we impacting our communities? And so we've got 1.2 million members across our clubs. And so we're changing people's lives or have the opportunity to change people's lives, or they have the opportunity to change their life with us. And there's just so many really rich, powerful stories of lives transformed of coming in. I was afraid to come in. My doctor told me if I didn't start doing something, I may not live, or I can't play with my grandkids, or I can't, do this. And we get to be a part of that journey. And it's a unique I've been with Home Depot and Dollar General, and this is different because when people come to the gym, it's their time for themselves. They're not
Mm.
here to do a task. They're not here to, shop and get their groceries and like how fast can they get in and out and not talk to anybody. When they come to the gym, when they come to Planet Fitness, they're coming to make an investment in themselves. Or they're trying to, and that may just be a mental break, maybe a stress relief. It may mean I have a goal. I want to be able to bench, you know, 50 pounds, right? I want to be able to lift my groceries without hurting my back. Whatever their goal is, we get to be a part of that journey. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that is really cool. I love this story too because like I have a personal love for like fitness and wellness, and I think that's huge that you're helping provide people with those opportunities to, improve their health and well-being. Uh
That's right.
yeah, it's really cool. And looking at your team around this. Now,
Yeah.
how does that look? I know you've got on the club level, you have team members, but do you have like an executive team as well? What's that structure look like?
Yeah, so it's evolved over time as we've evolved. But yeah, we have an incredible club support team is what we call it. And the most important job in the company is our club manager because they are directly impacting the environment and the culture that our members experience every single day. And so every one of us work for supporting the club manager to deliver the best possible member experience we can deliver on any given day. Because in the back of a member's mind is they're looking for a reason to maybe not continue their membership. And so we want to give them all of the positive reinforcement of you can do it. We're here to help. We're going to give you a great environment of clean and friendly. The equipment's going to work. You're going to have all the equipment you need. And so everything's oriented around supporting that experience. And so we have an incredible field leadership team. So we have district managers, and they have 10 to 14-ish clubs, kind of each, depending on geography. We have some areas like West Texas that are some pretty significant drive times. And then we have yeah, Phoenix market where we've got kind of more dense collection of clubs. So it's based off of that. We have two fantastic regional directors. One grew up in the business, started in the front desk as a trainer, and then worked her way up. And then we have another one that came from the outside and Five Below and some other experience. So a good mix of internal and external. We've got an incredible ops leader, deep experience with Starbucks, and just an incredible wealth of expertise on. Yeah, Starbucks does a lot of things really, really well, aside from maybe what you think of where they stand on issues, but they really run a tight operation, and so he brought a level of sophistication and precision that our team needed. And then we've got an entire facilities and support organization. Um, we've got 14 district managers, and we've got 14 to 15 maintenance technicians. And so the district manager has a maintenance technician to go around and make sure so they're doing preventive maintenance, and then they're doing break fix, either in the club or on the equipment. They're all certified on all the pieces of equipment we have in the gym, including our tanning beds and massage beds. And so we have an organization that is solely focused on making sure that the in-club experience is as good as we can make it. They handle all of our, if we're changing out equipment, they manage all of that process. Then we have an incredible marketing team. And so you can't not see a Planet Fitness ad somewhere. And that's because we have an incredible team that deploys, a good amount of marketing dollars into the space. And we do some really cool brand partnerships. We've done Laurel, Mississippi, small town in Mississippi. We opened the club a couple, maybe a year and a half ago, and really invested in the community, and we became a part of it. Our marketing team is there. They go to the mayor's office and take pictures with them, and we host events, downtown for that. Or we have a sponsor the Phoenix Suns in the Phoenix market, or University of Kansas in Kansas City. Or we try to make sure that we're embedded in the community because we want to support the community. And then obviously we have the marketing of social media ads and local TV buys, but the real marketing is the on the ground, embedded in the community type of marketing.
Oh, I want to dive more into that, but I first want to ask you, so
Okay.
how many team members, like, do you know off the top of your head, like a rough estimate of how many team members you currently have?
We somewhere between 2,750 and 2,800.
2,800. Wow, that's incredible. And so, yeah, I think that's a golden nugget of this conversation, as we're speaking to other entrepreneurs, you brought up that point of like really engaging in and investing in the community where
Yep.
the locations are. I think that's huge for success with businesses.
Yeah, I think people are looking for authenticity. And I think like what's a trusted name? And it's different by, I think we're all to some degree. I mean, we all want that, but it's different by generation. So how you market to, a Gen X like me or a boomer, which I think we're now combining Gen X and boomers, which is kind of heartbreaking now that we're talking about that, but that's what we're doing. But the younger generation, millennials, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, they're such an astute consumer and they can sniff out inauthentic messaging far better than we can. It's really remarkable what they can do. And there's a really nice transition that's happening. And so just rough numbers of like my generation and the older generation, 20% of the population was interested in some type of going to a gym of any kind, some type of fitness or wellness. It's in the mid 30% of younger generations. They see the benefits of it. You can see it in alcohol sales. They don't drink nearly as much. They invest in the community. They want to be a part of something. So they prioritize dollars on experience and community over stuff. And so they're much more of a minimalist type of, purchaser, much more savvy on sniffing out inauthentic brands. And so that's really important. And then we need to go meet them where they are, right? If they're interested in a 5K run, we want to be the sponsor of that 5K run. If they're at pickleball, they're into pickleball, we want to sponsor the pickleball tournament too, right? We want to be where they are because we can be a part of helping them. If they're into trail running, hey, when it's raining, come run with us, right? We can put you on a treadmill and crank up the elevation on it. You can get on our stair mills and run it out, right? And so we want to be a part of like, how do we help you do what you're passionate about doing? How do we help you do that? How do
Mhm.
we extend the longevity of your life? How do we extend the vitality of your life?
Oh, very true. Absolutely love that. And, that kind of leads me into where do you see the company going here, say in the next 3 to 5 years?
We'll continue to grow. There's still opportunity for us to add new gyms and get embedded in smaller communities or in micro communities. And so we continue to add gyms. We'll continue to invest in update gyms on different pieces of equipment. The nice thing about Planet Fitness is we don't chase fads, but because we don't need to. Um, but we understand where the consumer is and where they're headed, and so we want to make sure that we're offering what people want and need in there. And so there's been a shift over the last kind of 5 to 8, 10 years on a bigger emphasis on strength and mobility and functional movement. And so our gyms are getting, shifted to that type of space allocation. And so less cardio. Not that it's not important, do your cardio, but our space allocation is going to change and we're going to give you kind of more space for strength and functional training and movements and stretching and the advent of GLP-1s is impacts fitness and if you're on a GLP-1, make sure you're doing your strength training because it will go after the lean muscle mass first. And if you do just 3 to 4 days of 15 minutes of strength training, lift something heavy, for 10 minutes, you will keep that at bay and the GLP-1 will be able to take off the fat, which is what you want, the visceral fat, which is what you want. So if you're not doing a strength training regimen, sign up in your local Planet Fitness.
Very true. I've recently brought strength training back into my routine through the week, and I feel so much stronger when I do it. So I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible. And looking at, I would say, I like to share two challenges that businesses are faced with to show that transparency and within, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, it is such a struggle because sometimes you feel alone in it. So, what
Yeah.
is something like you're currently challenged with within? It could be anything within the business, like growth, development, or something you're working through.
Yeah. I think, I mean, that's the businesses never don't have challenges. And so I think anybody that's Um, if you're selling a franchise of just like it's passive and you don't have to do anything, then you're not really running a business. And that's not where the fun is. The fun is building a team and working through the challenges that are out there. And so I think, leading people is always a challenge because people are imperfect. So finding ways to continue to keep them aligned and engaged on what the mission is on it is always a challenge. Certainly inflation and the cost impact to our business is we've had to get really creative in how we think about allocating resources. And so our team's done a terrific job over the last 4 or 5 years of just retooling processes and how do we automate some things and how do we get more precise in how we allocate resources where before, it was just kind of maybe a peanut butter spread on how we allocated the number of hours to a club. Now we're dialed into what are the hours of operation? What are the actual check-ins? And so we're tailoring the hours of operation and the amount of labor to make sure we can really deliver the right member experience, but not have the overage on it. And so we continue to work and refine that work to continue to manage, the profit margins we need to manage. So cost is certainly inflation is a piece. Construction costs considerably different than 5 or 6 years ago. And so how do you still go after, find the right real estate deals, the right construction costs to get the return on invested capital, ROIC,
Mhm.
on it? And so those are real challenges that are still out there. And so we're just working our way through it, and you just keep solving problems, solving another one. Obviously, the biggest one on for in the last 5 years is COVID and so I think that's I would say, using that as probably the most extreme example of a challenge businesses went through, hopefully in our lifetime. Hopefully that's the biggest challenge we have is culture. And the investments we made in culture, the investments we continue to make in culture. We define culture as how do we think, act, and interact with each other and our vendor partners and our consumers. And so culture is the guiding light when there's not a supervisor standing there telling you what you should or shouldn't do. It's what's the right thing to do. And how should I think about this issue? How should I act on it? And how should I interact? What's the tone and tenor? And one of our values is treat others with kindness and respect. And so kindness and respect sometimes can come across, if it's misinterpreted, could be passive, as I'm being kind and respectful and I'm not addressing a poor performance, or I need an elevated level of commitment, or I need an elevated, I need you to perform at a better level. No, kindness and respect is speaking truth to someone. And we're going to do it with kindness and respect. And we're going to do it to help them improve, but we're going to be really clear on the expectations of what we need them to do. Right. And that's all levels of the organization, myself included, is I ask my team to hold me accountable. Like if there's things that I said I was going to do and I'm not doing them, then I want them to tell me. And you got to create that environment, uh, regardless of the size of the business. Is you got to create that environment of accountability and trust.
Those are such golden nuggets too, and especially the speaking truth one. I think that's huge, especially owning a business to have that clear communication with everyone so everybody knows, the values, knows the culture and is able to also respond in a way or communicate in a way of the same nature. So I think that's another golden nugget that you just mentioned.
Good.
So, mentioning the challenges, some of the things that you're faced with right now, specifically when it comes to say, I would like, I'm guessing like hiring or bringing on your franchisees or working with your franchisees. Are there any things that you're doing right now to like improve those communications, or like what are the things that you're um working on a layer deeper to
Yeah.
help with that?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that, especially as you get bigger, and then you start using um, systems and tools that the marketplace has. So, applicant tracking systems and payroll systems, and they're all really great sales presentations of all the things that they can do. And if you're not careful as an owner operator, as you get bigger, when you're small, you're involved in all the hiring decisions. You're making sure that we're hiring the right people, we're doing the right thing, the values are there, the work ethic's there, the engagement's there. But as you grow, you get further and further away from it. And then if you get, multi-unit in multiple cities, then you're obviously not hiring those people. Although I think some owners try to keep that control over it, and you're communicating an entirely different message when you try to keep that much control of, like, you got to trust the people that if you hire them to go run that portion of the business, then you got to let them, go run that business. And part of that is you got to learn how to hire the right people. And sometimes you don't hire the right people. And so I would say that the thing that I've learned in that piece is what is the true applicant experience. And so all of these really cool tools that are out there, ADP and Paycom and Paycor, and all of them are out there. They all have great sales presentations. They show it to the executives, and everybody's like, yeah, okay, well, that solves our problem. So we're good.
Mhm.
But you got to go another level deeper and go, okay, what's an applicant feeling? What does this look and feel like to an applicant? And so we did that work, and it was just too convoluted, and we weren't responding back to applicants. You've got to be able to hire in this environment with the generation of Alpha, Millennial, Gen Z, any generation, but those in particular, the speed at which you respond to those. And so if they're looking for a job, they're looking for a job. And so how quickly can you respond? How quickly can you interview? Can you scan the application? Depending on the level of job, can you hire the person without really an interview and having them come in? Or can you do it over Zoom or FaceTime? And how fast can you move on it really matters. And being able to make that right, and then trust your onboarding process, that they're going to get onboarded correctly, they're going to get trained correctly, you're going to equip them with the skills they need in order to be successful. And kind of that 90-day mark is really such a critical piece of it, of they're excited about the job, and do the expectations match what you told them. And so 90 days in, if you sold them, hey, this job is going to be this way, and it's something entirely different, well, 90 days in, they're like, this job is not what you told me it was. And so now I have a credibility and an authenticity gap, right? Of, you hired me, Kay, to come in. It was going to be like this, but it's actually something very different. I might have been okay if it was this, but I didn't know it was this. And so now I have a trust credibility gap. And so making sure that you're really transparent and honest about what the job is, what the expectations are, what the culture's like, what are the expectations of our culture. And then that 90-day point of making sure you're doing a check-in to make sure that they're engaged, they're aligned, they're still excited about the job. And then what opportunities do they have to grow? And so how do you create those moments for people to grow?
Mm. This has been a great conversation. I've absolutely loved talking to you about your business, about what you're growing, and just learning all the nuts and bolts, especially for it's such a fun industry as wellness.
Yeah.
Now I'd love to dive into part of the Q&A called our rapid fire questions, where I ask
Okay.
you 4 questions and answer very top of mind.
Okay.
All right. Question number 1 is, what is a key to success for you?
Grit and resilience.
Powerful. And number 2 is, what is a piece of advice you have for other business owners?
Uh, Learn from your mistakes and share what you learn with others.
Oh, that's another great answer. I love that. Number 3 is, it could be a book, a podcast, an article, just something that resonated with you most recently.
I read the book called Range, and it's about the path to success is not always linear. And so um, I think people have this myth of there's only one path to success. There's lots of paths to success.
Hmm. Very true. I just wrote that one down because I want to check that out.
Yeah.
And the fourth question is, if you could wave a magic wand and rapidly improve one aspect of your business, what would it be?
I think I would always go of increasing the member experience of how do we make that just a world-class experience every single time that a member walks in.
Definitely. Well, Cullen, thanks for doing our rapid fire questions. Before we get to our final question of the day, how can folks connect with you and your business online?
Well, you can go to planetfitness.com and you can learn about our gyms, and please join one near you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Our final question of the day is, what is most inspiring to you today?
What's most inspiring is I think the our teammates in our clubs and the when I walk our clubs and I the energy from our team, the excitement they have for creating that environment is just it's humbling to see that level of intensity that they have for doing what they do. And it's just it's if I'm ever um, you know weighed down by just the burden of being a business owner, go spend time in our club with our team, and you can't help but leave inspired.
Mm, well, I'm excited. I'm gonna have to stop by, do a workout, check out one of
Yeah,
your locations. This has been so much fun. Thanks again so much for being on the Business Spotlight.
yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.